All right, so we should be recording now. All right, everybody, so welcome to Diffusing Referral Concerns and Objections. All good on the audio, I'm being told, and it is Wednesday, December 7th, 2017. This is live. This is not one of those evergreen webinars that you jumped onto. So we're live. This is Pearl Harbor Day, in fact. So all thanks to everybody out there who has served our country. And so I'm going to just get started. If you have something a message you want to send to me right now, send it in the questions tab or the chat tab. I've got those two open. I should see it. This is a new platform for us, so I'm still a little bit new in finding my way around this. But get ready to take lots of notes, of course, unless you're driving. Yes, we are recording this, and we will share the recording. It's December 6th. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah. All right. Well, now you know it's live, right? All right. Sorry about that, folks. I've been traveling. You know how it goes. So questions. If you have questions, you can put them in the box there. And everybody's telling me that it's the 6th. Thank you. And put questions in there or the chat. I'll be looking from time to time to see what questions you have going in. And there's my email address right there on the screen. If a question comes to you later, that comes straight to me. So there's no middleman. You'll be talking straight to me. I'm happy to answer any question I possibly can for you. As you know, this is being sponsored by Insurance WebX. We want to thank the folks over there for making this possible. We have kind of a mixture of some of my current clients and followers on, as well as a fair number of folks who have learned about me through Insurance WebX. So I do have a disclaimer. The ideas and strategies and methods that you're about to cover in this outline do not work. I just want you to know that, and unless you take action, right? So ideas are worthless unless you put them into action, right? So we're going to talk about concerns, objections. I use the word concerns, and you're welcome, Richard. So because sometimes it's a real strong objection. Sometimes they're not sure how you want to go about this. There's a range of objections and resistance that we might get in this referral introduction process, right? So I'm going to cover 3 strategies. The first strategy is how to minimize the chance for objections in the first place. And there's some very key things that we teach. You may be familiar with some of these if you've been following me for a while, but need to be reminded. If you've not been following my work, then you definitely want to learn about these. And so one thing is, of course, to make sure you're super referable in the first place. I have people come up to me and say, Bill, I ask referrals. I don't get any. My clients don't want to do it, whatever. But they love me. And I say, well, let's look at that they love me part first. Are you super referable? We talk about that in past webinars. We'll talk about it in future ones. But what we need to do is create client engagement. We know that there's actually not a strong link or a low correlation between client satisfaction and the willingness to give referrals and make introductions. What we need to create is engaged clients. And so we need to engage with them with our value, the things you ask, the things you teach, your responsive service. All those are the parts of the value. And you're doing this already to a certain degree, obviously. And they want to engage with who you are as an individual. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, because that's pretty critical in becoming referable, that they not just get a sense of our value, but they get a sense of us. Then to be an incredible listener, obviously, to not talk too much. I'm writing a new book called Radical Relevance, and one tactical aspect of being more relevant is not talking too much about us until we learn a little bit about them. And so being that great listener. There was one financial professional I've been working with in Houston. When he asks questions of his clients, he'll listen before he writes anything down. Most of us will pick up a pad of paper, right? We'll just take some notes. So we want to make sure we remember. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what he does is he actually just listens. And then he picks up his pen. He says, so what I heard you say was this. And he'll either get corrected, say, no, the client will say, what I really meant was this. Or they'll say, yep, you got it. That's exactly what. And that creates that bond of trust and that super referability. And this all goes to this level of business friendship. I did a webinar a few months ago about how to turn satisfied clients and happy clients into advocates for our business. And one of the ways to do that is to build that quote unquote business friendship. I'm not talking about going out late at night drinking, telling deep, dark secrets, and just creating a relationship that goes more than the core business. So I just ran across some research done by Matt Oxley, and I want to share a little bit of it with you on this webinar because it's very relevant to what we're talking about. So Matt has what he calls a business-only relationship and a business social. I call it the business friendship, same idea. And wealthy clients in his study who rated their financial professional, their advisor, with a highly satisfied rating. I'm highly satisfied with my advisor. 49, almost 50% said, who had a business-only relationship, said they were satisfied. So that means a little bit over half weren't satisfied. That's not good. But 73, almost 74% who had that business social relationship said that they were satisfied. So that's a critical element in creating those engaged clients, created more highly satisfied clients, and becoming more referable. And, I use the word referrals, but really I'm not moving away from referrals. Let's say I'm adding on to, and that is the word introductions. And whenever we're talking with prospects or clients or centers of influence, we want to move away from the word referrals. We want to move towards the word introductions. And here's a study that Matt did that will, I think, prove the point pretty well. Of the wealthy clients that Matt studies, 83% said they didn't like to get asked for referrals, but 73 or 86% said they didn't mind giving introductions for their advisor. So part of that's semantic, I suspect, just their relationship, the word referral, maybe they had a bad experience, but I think it's more than that. I know, and we'll show you in a minute, that when you come looking for a very specific sort of introduction to a very specific person, then it's going to make a huge difference in their willingness to do this. So I see that people are raising their hand, and I'm got to learn how to do that. Well, just ask a question. Put it in the chat or in the question, and then I'll know how to deal with it. Forgive me for that. So we're in minimizing the chance for objections. So one way to do this is to teach them who you serve the best. So I've been coaching this guy out in Vancouver, Canada, and he started going to his clients and talking about the value discussion. We talked a little bit about the value discussion. And when he started having the value discussion with his clients started bringing up the referral process on their own, right? They started talking about, we'd love to introduce you, Rod. Do you have some tool we can use to introduce you? Just doing the value discussion, they started to bring up the referral process on their own. And one of the things he started teaching them was who he served the best, so they could tell how to recognize someone who was a good match for him. So first of all, we got to be clear: who's an ideal client for us? Who do we want to meet? We got to teach your clients who you serve the best, right? This is one way to get referrals and introductions without even asking. It's a way to minimize the possibility of objections because you bring them into the conversation usually before you actually ask. So these are all the things we're doing beforehand to become more referable and reduce the chance of objections in the first place. And as I mentioned earlier, you come to the conversation with specific categories, right? Very specific categories that you want to bring. So let me go into a little more depth on that. In our VIPS method for asking for referrals, the S stands for suggest names and categories, right? We want to come with specific individuals or specific categories, because when we throw it open to the whole universe and we say, who do you know we can help? They usually draw a blank, don't they? And it goes nowhere if the conversation fizzles. Call that an objection, if you will. It's because you're not asking in the right way. So what we want to do is we want to start as specific as possible. And this is what Matt's talking about in his research. So the bullseye in asking for referrals or introductions is specific people they've mentioned, right? Very specific people that they've mentioned. They mentioned their Uncle Ernie. They mentioned their sister, their brother-in-law in the area. If you're asking good questions at the outset of the relationship, how long you've been in the area? Did you know anyone when you moved here? Oh, you must have family in the area then. Just general get to know you kind of questions will start to build some inventory of people that you can then bring into this referral conversation. I'll tell you a great question to ask is, especially if you're a financial advisor, or really anything related to your business if you're not an advisor, as who have made some financial decisions that you really respect, right? Who in your world have made some financial decisions you really respect? And they'll say, well, you know, my sister and brother-in-law or my uncle or my dad or whatever. And so they're starting to tell you about people. Now, you're learning about their relationship to financial decisions, which is good, helps you be better for them, but you're also identifying folks that they know, and it goes into that inventory, right? So a specific people is the best place to come to. You're going to find much less resistance. You're not going to get the I don't know anybody or I can't think of anybody, because you've already thought of some folks. Now, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to introduce you to their uncle, but it's really going to minimize the possibilities, because people, as you saw from the study, they like to create introductions. They don't just like to be asked for that generic referrals. So a little, not quite as good as the bullseye, but not too bad, is categories. Obviously, money in motion categories, life event categories, those sorts of things can make a great place to start. Right? You came to me because you were changing jobs. Gosh, let's talk about who else that you know that are in a similar position. Or you came to me because you have an expanding family, or because you're starting to think about retirement, or whatever the life events and the money in motion things that go on that will trigger someone who might have their radar up for someone like yourself. So that's a pretty good place to start as well. And when you come to this request, you say, we're just brainstorming here. I got a couple ideas I'd like to run by you. So we're taking all the pressure off of it, but we're coming with very specific folks to have them think about. This will eliminate a lot of concerns and objections you get. Teaching them how you're going to handle these, and then being very specific with this, going to eliminate a lot of the problems. Now, you can expand out from this if you want. You can look at who they know on LinkedIn, or lists of people on their board of directors of their trade association. There's ways you can expand out, but you want to start specific and then expand out, and you'll have much better success that way. Now, make sure they trust your referral process. Again, we're talking about becoming more referable, right? So first of all, teach them how you handle referrals. I mentioned that earlier. I want to give you a sense of what that sounds like. George, one more thing I want to run by you before we're done is a lot of our clients like to introduce the work we do to other people, and I just thought it'd be nice for you to have a sense of what that would look like, so you'd feel comfortable. First of all, the work we do, completely confidential. They'll never learn about your financial situation from me, or vice versa. Even with close family members, we can't cross that line. And we handle sort of thing with great care, meaning I don't like to call anybody from out of the blue and surprise them and make them wonder, why did George give my name out to this guy, right? Nobody likes to get that kind of call. I like to work through introductions, and typically, I talk to my clients. They have someone in mind. If you have someone in mind, we'll talk about them, and we'll create an approach that feels comfortable for you, for them, for everybody, and maybe at least sparks their interest in hearing from me. How's that sound? Now, I'm going to show you a way how to get that specific script I just gave you. In fact, I'll just send it to you. When I send the recording, I'll send the script that you just heard. But teaching people what it would look like, that takes the confidentiality and the mystery away. If you have not talked to your clients about this, about specifically how you would deal with it, confidentiality, handle with care, then you're going to get more resistance. What some people like to do is they'll have this conversation at the beginning of the meeting. Let's say it's a review meeting. And then at the end of the meeting, they get into the VIPS method to ask for referrals and introductions. But they have this confidentiality and handle with care playing in the air already. So it's already there. So this will make a huge difference in minimizing the objections you get. I want to talk to you about a little process that we created just to help you create referral trust. And what I mean by this is, again, how you receive the referrals you get, how you process the referrals you get. If someone creates an introduction for you, they want to see how you follow through on that. And if you follow through it on it the right way, you're going to become even more referable. So the T stands for treat the prospect like royalties. Probably goes without saying. You're going to run a little faster, jump a little higher for these folks than some internet lead you might get. You're going to tell your staff about them, right? This is a referral from so-and-so. The R's, respond immediately. Referrals have a short shelf life. And I don't know if it's happened to you. It's happened to me. Sometimes we get introduced, referred to someone, and we don't follow up in a timely manner, and it just kind of fades away, and that's not good. It burns the referral bridge, all right? The U is update your referral source. Make sure you keep them in the loop. They want to know, did you at least follow through on this? So how you receive and process will make a big difference on whether they're going to keep doing this, right? We want to say thank you. Minimum would be a handwritten note. I like to send a little thank you something, compliance friendly, of course. I often will look at where they went to school, where they went to university, and I'll get coasters with their logo on it. I just sent a very nice Yeti cup to someone who gave me referrals with his university logo on it. I got 2 referrals this morning, really introductions, I should say, over the phone. And I found that this woman went to Kansas State. I went on Amazon and I got a nice throw, Kansas State logo throw. And so we customized the thank you, and it really has a lot of emotional oomph when we do that. And then get the new client to thank the old client, right? That makes it super referable, right? George, when are you going to talk to Laura next? Well, or Laura, when are you going to talk to George next? I'll probably talk to them next week. Great. Will you thank them for both of us? Or, I was thinking about taking you guys to lunch just so we can all say thank you, to each other. What do you think? So we're just getting that new prospect to say thank you to the referral source. And that makes you super referable, right? So everything we've covered so far is about heading them off at the pass, if you will, minimizing the chances for referrals and objections, I should say, and concerns. Let me take a sip of water. I'm looking for any chats or questions. Not seeing them. I will keep going. So let's talk about dealing with objections before they arise. So first we're minimizing the chances. Now we're going to deal with them before they actually even come up. So every business has certain types of recurring objections, right? Sometimes they're around other parts of our process. Sometimes it's around the referral process. So what we want to do, if it's a very prevalent objection, we want to make sure we bring it up before they bring it up, because then we can bring it up in the right context. We're now being proactive. We're dealing with it in a way and at a time we'd like to deal with it, versus being put on our heels and being reactive, right? So in movies, they use this technique called foreshadowing, like in Star Wars, right? They foreshadowed, Darth Vader, right? Being his father, Luke, I am your father. And so we can foreshadow things in sales and in the referral process in general. So let's say he's already working with someone, or they're already working with someone. It's a pretty prevalent one in financial services. Would you agree? Especially when you're dealing with more successful individuals. So, I think he's already working with someone, or I'm sure they're already covered. So what we want to do here is we want to head this off at the pass, right? We want to bring this up. And this is a way to promote referrals, promote introductions. We're not really asking, but we're entering it into the conversation and handling this sort of objection at the same time. It's a very powerful way to think. So I'll just read this to you. Bob, one thing I want to mention before we get going with the first item on the agenda is my clients often think of other folks who should know about the value I bring to the table, but aren't always sure how to introduce me to them, because they kind of assume their friends, colleagues may already be working with someone. And the truth is, most people that I bring on clients these days were working with someone else before I was introduced, as were you. So here's all I ask. If you think of someone who should at least know about the work I do, just let me know. Together, we can probably come up with a way for you to introduce me that feels comfortable for everyone. Fair enough? Fair enough. Right? So we've been able to plant the seed for the possibility of introductions. We've addressed this issue that they're working with someone. You can elaborate more on that. You could say, when you were working with some, but I asked you a couple of quick questions and you said, wow, maybe I don't have all my bases covered. Or maybe you said, I wasn't happy with who I was working with. I was just waiting to get introduced to someone I could trust, right? So that we know this is true. So this isn't a gimmicky sales technique. It really is a way to talk about this potential objection before it even comes up. So I hope you find that one helpful. I think I have another one around the foreshadowing. So, I don't like to give out my friends' phone numbers. This is one that came last night. Hopefully you got that email from me asking for questions. And so this came in last night. Now, sometimes when we get that one, it means that we may be being too aggressive around this. If someone says, yeah, my friend George, oh, great, what's George's phone number, right? Don't go for the phone number too quickly. Talk a little bit about the relationship. Talk a little bit about how they know each other and why they think George might be a good match for what you do, right? Or we can head this one off at the pass as well. I think you can see as I read these, the words aren't as important as how you deliver the words, that they have to be very natural and authentic, and I try to read this in a way that's like that. You know, Bob, one thing I want to mention over the years, I've had a number of clients, they've identified people they care about, who should know about the value I bring to the table, but sometimes they're hesitant to let me know about that. More than once I've heard, you know, I don't like to give my friends' phone numbers out. And I certainly appreciate that. We all want to be careful how we make introductions, right? I'm careful, you're careful. Personally, I don't like to call someone from out of the blue. People are busy. They generally don't answer their phone these days anyway, and they get annoyed from calls from people they don't know, right? So here's what I found works the best. I bolded that phrase because this is a great phrase. This works in all aspects of our business. People always want to know what works best. Here's what I found works the best. When we identify someone you think should at least know about the opportunities I present, you know, we'll work together to craft the best approach so everyone feels comfortable. You know, if you want to talk to them first, that's fine. We'll discuss maybe what you need to say to them to spark their interest to hearing from me. How does that sound? So again, we're foreshadowing the possibility. We're planting the seed of the possibility of referrals and introductions and handling a potential objection at the same time. We're foreshadowing the fact that if they do think of someone, this is going to be a comfortable process for them, right? They're not going to regret bringing this up. And that's quite often all people need to know is this will be a comfortable process, all right? So I want to hit you with strategy 3 in just a second, but there's one thing I want to talk about first, kind of a little fun actually. You probably recognize these movie characters. This is Katniss Everdeen and Hey Mitch, right? Her coach going into the Hunger Games, right? The hero and the guide. And if you think a lot of movies, they're really made up of this formula, right? The hero and the guide, right? The hero and the teacher. Very common formula in movies, right? Star Wars, any Star Wars fans, right? Luke Skywalker, the hero, and Yoda, the guide. And so I want to just run a quick idea by you real quick, something that we've just started to offer, which is me as Yoda. My director of marketing just put that together this morning. It's kind of gross looking. But you as the hero and me as your guide. So let me tell you real quick a little thing we put together, and then we'll get into the third strategy. I think everyone needs a guide from time to time, right? That's me on my way up to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, and that's Lemma Peter, the guide that got us to the top of the mountain. So we put together this kind of little coaching thing. I'm calling it pinpoint coaching because it's very narrow in its scope. And so we'll provide you with 3 video lessons covering promoting referrals, teaching our VIPS method, and then how to address objections, what that looks like, reinforcement of what we're doing here today, and then a chance for us to talk about what you're learning. And so we provide 2 coaching calls that usually go from about 40 to 60 minutes. And you know, we have a big coaching program, and we know not everybody wants that, not everybody needs it, not everybody can afford it. I get that. So every month we open up 5 slots, right? So I have 5 slots available for this particular pinpoint coaching around the asking for referrals, promoting, dealing with the objections that come up. You can bring specific scenarios to me. Hey, I got this guy. I want to talk to him about this. How should I handle it? And so we can brainstorm this. All you got to do is just send me an email and just say, hey, Bill, you know, I'm in or I'm interested. Tell me more. Send it to BillCates@referralcoach.com, and we'll tell you more, and we'll get you a slot. We can start it, you know, right away, or we can start it in the new year if you want to, which we want to just get that slot for you. All right. So let's go to strategy 3, which is our formula really for how to deal with these concerns as they do come up, and then the graceful exit. How do we exit out of the strategy or out of the conversation if they don't want to go there? Because not everybody wants to go there, right? We know that. So sometimes clients give us these no's disguised as maybes, right? They'll say, well, let me think about it. Give me some cards and I'll pass them out. I want to talk to them first. Now, sometimes we just assume that those are no's. Sometimes they are no's. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just trying to let us down easy by giving us that little hedge, that little maybe, right? The truth is we really don't know, right? The truth is we don't know. And so we want to have a method to find out what is the truth so then we can then deal with it. So Bob is asking, when do you foreshadow? So thank you, Bob. Well, foreshadowing can be done actually pretty early in just about any relationship. Now, let's say it's a first meeting with a brand new prospect. You maybe not use the foreshadowing, the objections in that one. You may say, how are you finding this meeting? You finding this helpful? What have we talked about that feels good? Or that we've talked about that's important to you. And they go, oh, this and that. And you go, great, this is important week. Please don't keep us a secret out there, right? Or, I'm never too busy to see if I can be a resource for other people you care about. So the first meeting, you might be a little softer in that regard. But the second time you get together, certainly you could do one of these. You could do it at the beginning of the meeting, in the middle, near the end, after they see the value, right? Have you found today's meeting helpful? Can you tell me what was important that we talked about to you today? Or and they talk a little bit about that, and you say, great, many of our clients like to introduce the work we do to other people, and I just thought if that ever came up for you, it would be good for you to have a sense of how we'd handle it, what it would look like, so you'd feel comfortable. Some of our clients are concerned that, well, their friends are already working with someone, and here's what I found to be the truth. And so I hope that helped, Bob. Now you can do this really anytime. You can do this with existing clients. These are particularly good to do if you've not been in the habit of asking for referrals and introductions, and you want to start to kind of get into this, wean yourself into this process a little bit. Then certainly these ways of foreshadowing are a great way to do that. And sometimes you'll get referrals without even asking, just by the foreshadowing, teaching people what you've observed, what seems to work the best. And you're not really asking, right? You're just teaching an aspect of it. So I hope that helps a little bit. And let's see. All right, mark that as done. All right, so let's keep going. So here's a formula for diffusing the objections, right? So the first thing we want to do is acknowledge their perspective, right? We always want to acknowledge their perspective, even if we don't agree with it, even if we think it's nonsense, right? The last thing we want to do is yes, but them, right? Pretty much on the heels of the acknowledge, and I'll play this out for you in a second, is understand the objection, explore the objection. By exploring the objection, by understanding their perspective, we now earn the right to share our perspective. We don't earn the right to share our perspective until we've heard theirs. And it's sometimes a pretty quick conversation. So if someone says, I don't like to give referrals, or I don't like to do this sort of things, that's fine. I know some people don't. That's acknowledgement, right? That's fine. I know some people don't. Can you tell me more? Have you had a bad experience? Right? It could be as simple as that. Just the words, tell me more. Can you tell me more? And what are they going to do? They're going to tell you more. So now you're going to understand their perspective. Perhaps you've heard the feel, felt, found strategy, right? Yeah, I understand how you feel. I've had clients who felt the same way until they found. Well, that can work, but you got to be careful, because if you haven't talked to them about the objection, about the concern, then you really don't know how they feel. You really don't know what's going on. And they want to feel understood, heard by you first before you go any further. And this, by the way, works for any objection in any aspects of our life, even in our personal life. When my daughter was a teenager, talk about objections, right? Just about everything I ever said or did for a couple of years there. When it comes to teenagers, there's nothing that good, solid reasoning won't aggravate further. And so I learned to try to understand her perspective first. Yeah, Jenna, I know you don't want to go, but tell me a little more. Help me understand, right? Whenever I'd say, help me understand, I'd kind of shift her out of that emotional response, which an objection to just about anything usually is an emotional response. And I shift her into a little more of a logical one, so I can at least try to understand what's going on and maybe what's the emotionality behind that. And so this is critical. Of all the things that you do around dealing with any kind of objections, and particularly today we're talking about referral concerns and objections, it's to understand, right? If someone says, all my friends are covered, all my friends are handled. Now, I already showed you a way to kind of handle that one even before it comes up, but let's say you didn't do that. Say, that makes sense. You're successful and you were working with someone before you and I got in touch. And it sounds like if we did this at all, you want to be pretty careful on how we'd handle that. Are you concerned how they'd react because they're probably working with someone? Or is this your gentle way of saying, Bill, I'm not sure I want to do this? Right? Have a little fun around this, but go for the truth, right? to say is, is this your gentle way of letting me down easy, right? Make it your personality. Obviously, I'm a little playful. You can kind of tell that. Usually it works. Sometimes it gets in my way, but most of the times it works. And so just try to understand more, and they will let you know. And sometimes they'll have a mistaken assumption, like they're afraid you won't have time for them if they introduce you to others, or they're afraid that they can't talk to their friend first, or that you're going to bug their friend. They don't know what your process looks like, right? So maybe you take a step back. So the reframe could be explaining your process. You could say, look, I understand that if you do this at all, you'd want to be very careful. I appreciate that. I'm actually very careful myself when I create introductions. So assuming you could talk to them first, maybe send an email introduction. You can see how I respond. They'll hear from you before anything. I won't get on the phone with them unless they're interested in talking to me. If we handle it in a gentle way like that, would you be a little more open to this? And then sometimes they are, right? And sometimes we get one or two referrals, and sometimes we have to back off. This is the hardest thing to teach. Of all the things in my system that I teach, this is the hardest, because there really is so many factors at play. Their relationship to the referral process, their belief in you and your referability and how you're going to handle it, right? Maybe they're just very super private kind of people. Maybe they've had a bad experience. We don't know. So we're doing everything we can on the front end to minimize the chances in terms of being super referable and them understanding our process, and then foreshadowing the possibilities that can come up and dealing with them before they actually do come up so they don't throw us off. And then we have a little process to deal with these when they come up. So the key here is not to be surprised, but to be prepared, right? There's a photo of me as a Cub Scout. And, the Boy Scout, Cub Scout motto, be prepared. And so that's what we want to do. Right, so let me give you an idea of how this will play out. Let me just check the time real quick. All right, we're in great shape. And there's my email address, by the way, at the bottom. If you want to learn more about that little pinpoint coaching program we have, just shoot me an email and we'll talk. We'll talk with email, we'll talk on the phone, whatever works for you. All right, so let's deal with a very common objection. I don't give referrals. And I played this out for you a little bit already, but we'll do it again just to make sure. So it's, that's fine. I know some people don't like, right? That's the acknowledge. Tell me more. Have you had a bad experience with this sort of thing? Or do you just need to know a little more about how I might reach out to them? Would that help you feel a little more comfortable? Well, I actually did. I gave someone, some neighbor's names and numbers out to a vacuum cleaner salesperson. You're very aggressive with them. Never heard the end of it, right? They don't invite me to the neighborhood picnic anymore. Ouch, that's a shame. So we're exploring what happened, right? Did you talk to your neighbors first? Did you talk to this guy about how he's going to reach out to your neighbors? No, we didn't do any of those. Well, that's probably where it broke down. Hypothetically, if we were able to craft or come up with an approach that feels comfortable, where you could reach out to them first, knowing how I would follow it up, would that feel more comfortable? Now, if you do that, what are they going to say? They're either going to say, well, if you promise to be really careful, right? Or I can talk to them first, or whatever their concern is, then you might move ahead and get one or two introductions to someone specific that you brought up as the best way to start, as you heard me say earlier. Or they may say, look, I like you. Maybe down the road, I'd love to help you with this, but I'm not ready right now. Right? Whatever, some form of no, that's a pretty clear no. Now you got to back off, right? Now you got to exit the conversation, but in a way that lives to bring it up perhaps another day. And I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Let me go to the next slide here. All right, here we go. So the concern or objection, let me talk to some people first, right? All right, so are they saying, no, I don't want to do this? Or do they really want to talk to some people first? We don't really know until we ask, do we? So, actually, I prefer you do that, right? That's the direction the horse is riding. Well, I'm going to ride in that direction because people want to protect the relationship. One thing to remember when we're in this process, people want to protect their relationships. So if you know that, if that's a guiding principle here, that people want to protect their relationships, how we bring it up, how we talk about it, all the words we use, it's all about that, right? It's all about them protecting the relationship. Sounds like you want to be careful about how we would proceed with something like this, right? We're just testing the waters. We're exploring. Well, absolutely. I'm not sure how my friends would react. Well, it makes sense, and as I mentioned, I have a couple ideas I'd like to run by you, right? Let them know we're prepared. We're thinking of a couple of folks. Sometimes that'll create a genuine curiosity, and they'll say, well, I'm usually pretty private around this stuff, but who are you thinking about? So sometimes that cuts through the objection because they're curious about who you've been thinking about, right? Knowing that you can speak to them first. May we give a little thought to this, right? We're being gentle around this. We're being confident in our value. We want to bring our value to other people, but we're being gentle at the same time. Yeah, I guess we can do that. What do you have in mind? So, my first thought is this. You came to me because you were changing employers. You want to discuss the financial ramifications of that move. Let's start there, right? Who comes to mind who has changed jobs over the last year or so, maybe looking to do so in the near future? That where we're coming with a category, right? A category of someone like our client. And so this is how we respond to the objection. If we reframe it a little bit and they see that we're going to be very careful about this, they may be very open to this, or they may say, no, I'd prefer not to do this. But we can't be afraid of the no, right? The reason I want to do this webinar for you is that if you're afraid of the no, if you're afraid of the concerns and objections that come up, or you just don't feel confident, right? The opposite of confidence is fear. If you don't feel confident, then you won't go there in the first place, right? So a referral objection, I've already told a lot of people about you. Okay, good. Let's see how you deal with that, right? Yeah, I've told a lot of people about, and you go, well, I appreciate that. The phone is not ringing off the hook, however. I haven't heard from anyone yet. And was this a recent thing? Well, not really. I probably told 3 or 4 people over the last month, that I've been happy with you. Got it. And, I'll be honest, I'm not surprised they haven't called me. For all sorts of reasons, most people put off doing the kind of work that we're doing, right? They're just stuck in inertia for whatever reason. Even smart, successful people procrastinate. Some aren't happy with whom they're working, but change can be difficult, right? Given that, I found what works the best. There's that phrase again, what works the best is to find a comfortable way for you to introduce me to them, directly to them, maybe a simple email handshake. Can we give that a try, right? So what we're trying to do is take this, I've told some people about you. We know that word of mouth is not, well, it's better than nothing, and sometimes it does help. Sometimes we do get an email or the phone rings, and we all should be getting that. It means we're referable. But as you know, sometimes that's just not enough. And so we need to get in that introduction, that connection. So we're teaching our clients how to introduce us. We're teaching our clients that word of mouth is not enough, right? It's not enough to make this happen. So I'm just looking for questions in chat, nothing coming through. All right. So let's talk about your escape plan. My friend Barry Elberstein calls it the graceful exit. I call it the emergency exit because I like to have a little fun with this. But here's my rule of thumb to know when to exit this conversation, right? So when you request permission to brainstorm around referrals, introductions, right? The first concern or objection you hear, you explore, right? You acknowledge and explore. We just covered that. Now, when you get a second one, right? They could repeat the same objection or concern. Their body language changes. They give you a new one. Any kind of second piece of resistance, now it's time to gracefully exit, right? To gracefully exit, but planting a seed so that you do it with confidence and you keep it open for the possibility for later. So here's the emergency exit. It's really just planting the seed, right? That's fine, George. Look, the next time you recognize someone you think should be aware of what I do, just don't keep it a secret. Makes sense? Makes sense. Or, Martha, I understand your reluctance. I appreciate that. The last thing I want to do is make you feel uncomfortable. And I just want you to know that anytime you ever recognize someone, identify someone you think should be aware of what I do, someone you care about, you want to make sure they have their bases covered, I'm never too busy to see if I can be a resource to help them out. Fair enough? Fair enough. And then you're done, right? You're being very genuine. You're trying to, identify these folks. And then if they don't want to go there, you back off. So we have a question just came in from Ken or Kenneth. Will there be a replay played? Yeah, you weren't able to join from the start. Yes, there is a replay. And hopefully it's working right now. It's recording. Ken, so yes, we'll get that to you, promise. Now, to avoid referral objections, right, to not get any of these things we're talking about, essentially just don't ask, right? I mean, if you ask, they can say no, or they can say maybe. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. All right. So any other questions coming up? We're getting into Q&A time here. So this is a reminder of our pinpoint coaching. It's a simple, easy, quick hit, result producing kind of coaching thing where you don't have to learn the entire system, and we don't have to invest all this time and money, but we're going to get you going with this, right? We can start tomorrow, we can start next week, we can start in January, but we have 5 slots that we're offering right now. We send out the slides. I won't be sending out all the slides, but I will send most of them to you, Lance. So yes, you'll be getting most of them because I know that's really important to catching some of the scripting and stuff that I did. All right, so Michelle says, you mentioned creating referral trust. I missed the last T. Can you review that? Yes, of course. The last T is get the new client to thank the referral source, right? So when are you going to talk to George next? So the T is kind of hidden, right? Get the new client to thank the referral source. So when are you going to talk to George next week? We thank him for the both of us. If you get a nice email, a thank you email or handwritten note from your new client, get permission to forward that over to the referral source, or take them all out to lunch and celebrate it that way. Margie, hey Margie, do you have a form for tracking referrals? Not really tracking referrals. I do have a form for tracking activity that will help you get referrals. Usually most people use just their CRM to do that. I'll be honest, I use Outlook, and I'm not getting probably the quantity that you guys are getting, but I just use Outlook to do that. But I'll send you that. Let me make a note. I'll send you that little form around I call it a scoreboard. Just let me just make a note. And the scripts, yes, thank you. We will also send some of the scripts. I promise you, those will be coming to you. All right, we're here to serve. All right, thanks. So any other questions? Let's see what else is coming through here. All right. So Diane wants to know, can you do this over the phone? Do you need to do this in person? What's the best way to do this? Well, let me give you kind of the hierarchy, all right? So in person is always best if you can do this. And I know some of you don't work in person with your clients, and most of mine's done over the phone. So it can be done over the phone. In person is always best. You can see body language. You usually have a little more time. Over the phone is tough if you're doing a quick hit conversation where they're asking you a question, you're gathering a little piece of information for them. But if you're doing a review or you're scheduling a phone call, then over phone can work, pretty well, especially when you come with specific individuals, right? This all gets better and easier and more efficient when you come looking for specific introductions to specific individuals or categories of individuals, all right? Email can be okay, or LinkedIn is kind of a form of email. Again, only if you have a good relationship with these folks and you're asking for a very specific introduction to a specific person. You don't want to use a throw open the whole universe type of strategy with an email or a LinkedIn. And then some people like to send out letters, to their clients. I'm not a big fan of that. It doesn't usually produce any results. I would prefer, in fact, I coached a woman last year who wanted to send a letter out, a New Year letter, to ask for referrals or introductions. And I coached her to, rather than do that, just send the letter out to teach people how she would handle it, what it would look like, confidentiality, handle with care, right? And that worked much better for her. So I see a couple others coming in on both the chat and the question. Let's take Jack first. Any special ideas on how you approach small business owners or CEOs? I assume for referrals, if that's what you mean, it's the same thing. B2B, B2C, it's all the same. I mean, business is just made up of individuals. So you might want to elaborate that. Are you talking about how to approach them to meet with them, or how you're approaching them to ask for referrals? If it's to ask, it's the same thing. Let me look at this one. It's a long one here. All right, Keith asks, my manager suggested that I first meet with potentials by sharing with them that I'm new in the career, excited about it, and I'm working to grow my network. Then asking them if they could do me a favor of meeting with me for 30 minutes so that I can show them what I do. The idea basically is to ask for introductions once I've done a capital needs analysis with them and they hopefully see the value. I'm finding that people are often reluctant to meet in the first place, especially if they know that I'm trying to grow my business through introductions. Yeah. I'd say with your natural market, Keith, with people that like you, love you, care about you, probably that's not bad. That probably can work fairly well because they just want to support you in some way. But when they know you're new, you're broadcasting lack of confidence, lack of credibility. So personally, I would steer away a little bit from the I'm new part of it and focus more in looking for their feedback. So if it's natural market folks, it could be, I want to show you a little bit about what I'm doing. I'd love to get your feedback. I'd love to get your reaction to it, how I talk about what I do, right? I love your opinion. So if you make them part of your, your learning and research process. So like I go to my clients all the time and say, hey, I'm thinking about saying this about my business or writing this new report. What do you think? And so my clients brainstorm with me. And then sometimes I say, well, when is that new program going to be ready? Right? So I prefer you would go to them, not just broadcasting, hey, let's meet for 30 minutes. I'll tell you about what I do so you can give me introductions. We know that not everyone likes to give introductions and make referrals. And we're already potentially putting them in an uncomfortable spot. So I'd go about this, and you can test this, Keith, just kind of see what works the best. But I test this more of, can I take you to lunch? Can I like to show you what I'm doing? I want to get your feedback. I value your opinion, all of that sort of thing. And you probably have better success. And you do need to show people what your process looks like to become referable. If they haven't experienced it firsthand because they're a client, you at least need to demonstrate it to them in a way that they get enough of it, enough out of it, right? I just got a text. Terry says, 3 coaching spots have been booked. We got 2 left. So if you want to get into that coaching thing, there you go. Mary, well, I won't say that. Someone said that I look cute as a Cub Scout. Well, thank you. That was the last time I looked cute. And then Jack says, I'm referring to employees, small business owners, and executives that work with CEOs. Jack, I'm still not quite sure I understand your question, so shoot me an email, bud. BillCates@referralcoach.com, so I don't take other people's time with me hemming and hawing and try to answer a question that I'm not sure you're asking. So shoot me an email. I'll get some clarity on this, and then we'll answer the question that way. All right, so let's see if there's anything else coming through. Let me give you one more slide here, guys. This is a kind of a sequence slide of what this all looks like. The value discussion, right? And then request to brainstorm. Well, if they say, yeah, sure, let's go about it. Who do you have in mind? Well, then we brainstorm. That's the easy part, right? But if you get a piece of resistance, what do? You explore, you acknowledge, you explore, you potentially reframe. And then if they accept that, if I can talk to them first, you promise you're going to be very gentle. Yeah, okay. And then fine, you get a name or two and you get introduced. But you get that second piece of resistance. That's where the professional exit, right? That's where the graceful exit comes into play. So this is just kind of a map of what this looks like. I'll send this as a separate slide or photo for you guys, so you can see this and maybe keep this handy, so you kind of remember what this process looks like. Stu wants to know, do referrals work any better with women versus men? Stu, the studies that I've seen over the years, I've been doing this 25 years, says the answer to that is yes. I've seen some actually large numbers saying that women are 300, 400 times more likely to participate in this than men are. Women, generally speaking, this is the generalization, are more relational than men are around this sort of thing. I mean, I don't know about you, if I've had the experience, you've probably had this too, where you have a couple. And you say, let's talk about who else you might introduce me to, who should know about the work we do. And the gentleman says, well, we'll think about it. And the woman says, well, what about Pat? We can introduce to Pat. Okay, if you want to, right? So, yeah, it tends to work better with women, generally speaking, than men. But it works quite well with men as well. No question about that. So any other questions coming in, boys and girls, men and women, guys and gals? I see nothing else coming in. So would love to work with you. Hopefully, if you haven't already gotten on our newsletter, just go to referralcoach.com/resources, referralcoach.com/resources. We'll notify you when the next webinar comes up through us or through Insurance WebEx. So thanks again to the folks at Insurance WebEx for sponsoring this, making this possible. Jack, reach out to me with an email. We'll get that question answered for you, and we'll get the recording and some subset of the slides and everything else out to everybody as soon as I possibly can. Thanks, everybody.